And welcome back. We're continuing our conversation with Dr. Louis Zabane. We're going to be switching gears for a bit here and move into other areas of ministerial responsibilities that the good doc has, right? On Friday, there was a religious affairs retreat, and I was surprised to see that quite a number of our religious leaders were in attendance, and they were looking at the church-state dynamic, if I may. And out of that came some interesting positions. Let's talk about that, Doc.
Right. So this is a third meeting, if you will, with the Christian community. We met first with the traditional churches, the Catholic, Methodist, Anglican churches, and then we also met with the evangelicals, right? So we decided in those meetings that we wanted to meet the entire community to be able to prioritize some areas. We already have a long-standing relationship with respect to schools, the church-state system, partnership with providing education to our country, to our people. And there, of course, you have areas that still continue to require work, how the managements and the ministry collaborate to get the best out of the curriculum with the teacher training and all that. So that's one area that's ongoing. But they gave some good suggestions on other potential areas that we could work on. For example, you know, they on a daily basis, they deal with persons who are most needy in our society. So what are those needs that they're hearing from persons who come to them? Of course, issues with poverty, issues with hunger, you know, issues with family problems and abuse and all these things come to them every day. And we could benefit from guidance on how we might be able to be more effective with utilizing scarce public resources to impact the lives of people. So that was the spirit of that conversation. However, there was a lively conversation on values. Where are our values? The values of the leadership of government and the values of the churches. And of course, there's a vast majority of common values. But they spoke about, you know, other things in their with how they view same-sex marriage, the LGBTQ community concerns and issues, the Equal Opportunities Bill. So these are difficult issues in the sense that you know, the government has an obligation to represent the entire country, and in the Constitution we have to safeguard the rights of everybody. And the religious community, they have their values that have in fact been inculcated, if you will, in the curriculum or in other efforts that they have done, and to see how best that could align. You know, issues like, for example, in the Constitution, it starts out with a preamble with respect for our Creator and God and so forth. So if the Constitution is saying this, then you know, how do we align with some of the other values that they have? So these are some of the tough questions that we were just looking at that meeting.
How has this particular ministry been able to do a proper consultation, and not just the leaders and heads of these Christian spaces, but we are a multi-spiritual, multi-ethnic, multi-religious country.
Multi-denominational.
And we have more than just the Christian communities. I don't even know what percentage makes up a majority of any of these groups. But with that said, developing a balance to please everybody within a religious state, you're talking about morals and values of people. not everybody has the same shared beliefs.
Right.
So how are you able to develop a policy or something clear that
Yes.
fits everybody?
Yeah, yeah, and we also met with the Muslim community as well. I think for the first time that was done. We met with them maybe a month ago and continue to be in communication with them. But that's precisely why in this case we had Council of Churches and Evangelicals, all the denominations were pretty much represented at that meeting, at least from the Christian side. And then we have as I said, other religious groups that we're also meeting with. And then we may even have traditional ways of spirituality that are coming maybe from centuries of practice. So while I have my well-known being a Catholic and all that, however, as the Minister of Religious Affairs, I have to be as fair and balanced as I can to find common ground and to say these are things that clearly we can all work on together, right? Basic values, things like promoting hard work as a basic thing of life, that it's a good thing to be out there and to become productive, like George Price used to say, right? Wake up and work. Looking out for your fellow
brothers and sisters.
Brothers and sisters. These are things that are there. Working on poverty, right? On severe poverty. Those are things that I think we all can agree on.
I have a question for you, Doc. When you look at religion being one of the social institutions or social constructs, right? You have a lot of people who are rooted in traditionalism, and they may not necessarily be liberal-minded or liberal thinkers. They are one way because that's how they see it. And because of that, they may not be open-minded to accept someone else. So if you're mentioning earlier the LGBTQ community, and the fact that among them you do have people who are believers, who believe in the same God that we all believe in, but they feel left out or ostracized in a manner of speaking because of their, in this case, their sexual beliefs and practices and what have you. How do you now look at it from the constitutional aspect and look at it from the religious aspect and find that balance?
Again, as I said, it's not an easy task, but I think at the very beginning, for us to make any progress, it has to be based on respect.
Yeah.
And that we're all created by the same creator or by nature, whatever you want to see it, but give that respect to everybody and an audience. And so that's been our approach. There's a lot for us to learn as well. I think in that approach, that is when you are open to wisdom. And that is how we believe we can move forward with that. But speaking about the Constitution, we also have an ongoing work, and there's an overlap there from the recommendations of the PCC. And as the ministry, what we have been doing, we work closely with the Attorney General's office on this as well, where we are reviewing all of those recommendations. The Attorney General's office has sent that report to a constitutional law firm, a group of people. We should be getting a report back the 6th, I believe, of March. That's one assessment of it. And then we at the ministry are working with the chairs of the PCC. We've had this last Saturday our third meeting with them. We have one more where we're going recommendation by recommendation so that we could try to understand how did the recommendations come about, what was the process for this recommendation to come out. And clearly, and they admitted too, not all of these recommendations are really of a level for a constitutional change.
Right.
A lot of it has to do more with policy direction that they would like to see and that sort of thing. Bigger issues, of course, like should the Senate be elected? You know, those are big issues that we're looking at. changes in the judiciary, those bigger issues. And so we are going to do the best that we can before we present to the cabinet to be able to say, okay, these here, based on our meetings with the PCC people and the advice of our attorney, are really what we should be looking at as potential changes to the Constitution. And then it is in the purview then of the cabinet to decide which ones will carry forward.
But even so, Doc, when last we spoke about the People's Constitution Commission and the work that they were doing and the final report, that was very contentious because you had some people who came out and said, look, we participated, but we don't feel as if though the process was fair to us. And so they ended up criticizing it as opposed to standing behind what those recommendations are.
Right.
Now you have the task of making it all work. Let's go there.
Fortunately, there is a dissenting document of all the dissenting views that were captured. That's also going to be a part of what we present to the cabinet so that they could know. So you could imagine it's a daunting task. First of all, it's 167. Unfortunately, not all of each one is properly and clearly linked to where in the Constitution the change should be.
Right.
And then the dissenting views have to be linked back to those to say, okay, cabinet, this is a recommendation, let's say, on the elected Senate, but here are the dissenting views, and here's the section in the Constitution or the sections that are affected by it. And so, you know, it's something that is quite involved.
Here's my question in terms of even if all of this works out, right? We have a very bad habit in Belize of not reinforcing and monitoring, because for the most part we have a good constitution and we have really good laws. Of course, some might be outdated based on the progress of the country, but for the most part we have a good constitution and good laws. What we lack is awareness in terms of the people that actually know the Constitution and the laws of the land, and the reinforcement of the Constitution and the laws of the land. Where does your ministry sit in terms of ensuring that these tasks are followed through and there is reinforcement?
Well, you know, I think our purview only goes to a certain length, if you will, towards that larger objective. At the end of the day, it has to be that all the different branches of government are carrying out their roles as well. So we can identify and say, okay, from the PCC's recommendations, these are areas where we fall short, where there are gaps, where there are weaknesses, and why they said that, what was the rationale for that, so that then we can make a decision on what's the best way forward. You know, where are things that have worked well and we don't need to touch that, but these are clearly other areas that maybe might need some consideration.
Doc,
go ahead.
I want to go in another direction now, right? Indigenous Peoples Affairs. Just Friday, we heard of some contention happening down south once again when it comes to land rights and land tenure and what have you. That's also part of your ministerial responsibility. Where do we stand where that is concerned? Because we're over a decade after the CCJ's landmark ruling where Maya land rights are concerned, but I think for some people on the ground it doesn't feel as if though we've moved any further than where we were 10 or 15 years ago.
Yeah, so again, when we came in the new term and I had this opportunity to work with the various stakeholders, we immediately went in to try to understand what's going on the ground. So we met with the Maya Leaders Alliance, the Toledo Alcaldes Association. Those are the main leadership persons with respect to their concerns and the CCJ ruling. But we also met with what are called third parties, in the case the landowners.
The private landowners, right? Yeah.
We also met with the non-Maya communities, that villages and people who are impacted or potentially going to be impacted by the decision. And so, you know, it's to try to understand their perspectives, their main concerns, but also, in some sense, having that communication among themselves. So the CCJ ended its kind of supervisory role at the end of October. What it was doing was to have periodic sessions where updates would be shared on how, if any progress was being made with respect to complying with the decisions. And up to that point, we were going to put into place the review panel portion of the work plan that we have. So that review panel is comprised of 2 members of government and 2 members that the Maya leaders choose. And it is to review draft legislation based on the government's attempt at compliance. In that draft legislation, at this point in time, we have some specific things that have been placed and to a large extent rejected by the Maya leaders, which would be looking at the area around their villages that they believe are communal areas. From their perspective, they wish the country to know through meetings with us that their practices historically have been to utilize in a sustainable way the forests and the rivers around their villages. And so while other communities might see their village just for the purpose of owning a residence, and you catch on a bus and you go work at the city, well, that's your village right there, right? For them, they have the forest, they need to get material for housing, they might do hunting, medicinal purposes, and so, and therefore their position is that you need a wider area for them to continue in their traditional way of living. Now here comes in the fact that, say from the 30s or 40s or 50s, people have gotten land in that area, title land or lease land. And so how do you address their rights? And then you have a non-Maya village that is bordering or close by, but that their communal area overlaps. Then what do you do there again?
That was the issue this weekend.
That's Yemery Grove and Laguna.
Yes, that as well.
Right? So what we have had to do is first we also formed recently we have a committee in cabinet, subcommittee of ministries related to this case. And so we got technical people from that committee. We have Ministry of Natural Resources, obviously for the land issues. We have the Ministry of Sustainable Development that deals with issues of forest reserves and so on. We have to have now the national security because of the tensions that are going on. And then we have the area reps that are in that area, and then our Ministry of Indigenous Affairs. And so technical people working to say, okay, let's go and look at the non-Maya communities, because many of those persons, they're at the land's office, their accounts were locked. They can't pay their taxes for their land and so forth. So we were able to, fortunately, a few weeks ago, work through that so that now these people can have their accounts unlocked. It might seem like a small thing, but for them, for that stakeholder group, it's a big deal. And now the landowners have organized themselves. In fact, the actual decision has recommended that landowners are expected that they will organize themselves to protect their rights. So they did that, and they have an attorney that came now and had a meeting with us to say these are our rights and these are the things that we are looking forward to in trying to resolve this thing, that our rights are not impinged, etc. So we're at that stage. And then now we have the review panel, for which we're going to be working with the Maya leaders to look at this draft and get their feedback and come back to cabinet and say, of the draft legislation, what we're proposing, they're saying that this won't work, that won't work, etc. And to try and find a way that in the best possible situation, we can try to balance the rights of everybody.
Yeah.
But I'll say outright that it's going to be very difficult to try to get everybody's rights. And so at some point or the other, there will probably be some court case, one against the other and so forth. And we'll just have to go through that process.
Wonderful. Well, Dr. Zabane, thank you so much for joining us this morning. I know like the time is very short and there are a million other things that we would like to discuss, but we just want to say thank you for joining us, stopping by, and of course we will be seeing the results of the National Bus Company rollout very soon. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Sareme. Muchas gracias. And wishing everybody a great day.
Wonderful.
God bless.
All right, we are going to take a quick break and we'll switch gears into highlighting sustainable, inclusive farming for Belizeans.